I've
Hold on.
added the subscription, but I still don't know where the actual link for the live stream is.
Hold on. I'm just waiting for it to tell me that it has started. So let's take it on faith that it's happening. And
Okay.
if it's not actually going out live, then I will edit the video and we will upload the video.
Okay.
But let's assume that we're on. So, hi to
Hi.
everyone out there watching. Welcome to the first episode of our Counting Down to Charmed 2025 series of videos. Today, we'll be talking about the very first Charmed ever in 2016. And
That was a long
because
time
we don't,
ago.
oh, yeah, I know. Because we don't plaster our faces around everywhere. I'm EnScenic, aka Noelle. If you've been to a Charmed in the last 3 years, you're used to seeing me like this, only from the bridge of my nose up. And of
Here,
course,
this
with
help?
me, there we go. With me, we have drum roll.
Oh, we have me, Wise Guy. I've been around for a little bit.
Justice Gauche. Justice Gauche. We
Oh my God.
were all taken aback to realize that the upcoming Charms will be the 10th one,
Mm-hmm.
and thought it would be nice to share backstory and information about previous conventions with people. So,
So many stories.
so let's talk about 2016 a little bit. Why Charmed? Why Charmed in the first place? What else was
Well,
going on in the world?
okay, it started shortly after I did an interview with sex nerd Sandra. Just for some reason, just the timing wise, it's not really a causal effect. But right after that, Miss Isis called me. Uh, Miss Isis used to be a community member in the Chicago area, and then
Mm-hmm.
she moved into the DC area. She was one of the original people that started what is now Beguiled, and back then it was called Meow. Uh,
Like a squeaky toy.
but she wanted to bring that kind of thing to the DC Baltimore area. So she grabbed me, she got a hold of Turnabout and CU Foil, who were running the SIG at the time, and also another guy who used to be running the SIG. No, Mr. Tactics was involved there. Um, and I think that was it for, no, there was also a guy named Joe who was our volunteer coordinator.
I love
Quiet
all the
Joe.
fancy names. We have
Yes.
Wise Guy, we have Miss Isis, and Joe.
Yeah. Um, so we started at the bottom, square one. What the hell do you do to put on a con? Um, and we found we had two people that were volunteers that first year that were absolutely essential to helping us figure that out.
Mhm,
One of them was Ask Jeeves,
mhm.
and the other one was Curious Katie. Curious Katie knew all the ins and outs of registration because she had done it before at other cons. Ask Jeeves had also been volunteering in other cons and was very interested in bringing hypnoplay. So they helped out a lot that first year, even though they weren't officially concom until the following year because we needed them.
Yeah.
One thing we learned very quickly from the first year was we needed to have more people on concom
Mhm.
because we were all going nuts uh, trying to keep everything together. Looking for a hotel was interesting. Um, we looked at a lot of different places, and frankly, budget was a big concern
Hmm.
because we didn't know how many people were going to come to this. We didn't know how much money we actually had to spend. So we were really like, rock bottom on anything we could. So we we went with the Ramada Inn down by BWI.
Yeah, which does not exist any longer. We are
No, it
not
does not.
outing. We are not outing a hotel in
No,
any
they do
way,
not
shape, or
exist
form.
anymore.
Huh?
In fact, I don't think they exist anymore, period. That hotel. Um, we have this habit, if you've noticed, when we leave a
Mm.
hotel, they have a tendency to shut down.
I mean, so before we get dive into, because I definitely have things to say about that. Before we dive into the hotel conversation, I want to check my memory, right?
Mhm.
In 2016, as far as major hypnosis conventions go, before Charmed, there were three cons that were all basically branded the same, right? We had Nihu in
Yes.
New England and Wehu in California and Mihu in the Chicago area.
Yep.
And all of those cons were run by people independent of another organization who had different sources of funding based on who they were or what their own personal incomes were. But Charmed
Yes.
has always been a part of the Black Rose organization, right?
Well, we've
So,
always been sponsored by them.
mhm,
They pretty much have always left us to do our own thing, but they are the reason we did that. We had a group right there in the DC area, and it was at the time pretty healthy. But
mhm,
also, they could provide liability insurance. They could make the deposit on the hotel, so we didn't have to go scrounging around for cash to do that.
mhm.
They could provide dungeon furniture so that we could have a dungeon. That was never as easy as it should have been.
Yeah. Was there a dungeon at the first Charmed?
There
I
was a
didn't
dungeon
use
at the
it, so
first
I
charm.
don't remember.
It was not what you would call elaborate. I think we had a cross and two spanking benches and a couple of mats. Uh,
Yes.
but it was a start.
Hmm.
Um, so the main reason for Black Rose was because they had that kind of backing, and they had those resources that we didn't have ourselves. So we figured no reason not to go ahead and go in with them. And it worked out well because they didn't really, they used to have an annual event that they would run, and it kind of died. Um,
Hmm.
I understand there was some conflict with Dark Odyssey, and some people on the board that ran it that's left the board, stuff like that. I didn't pay a lot of attention to it, but
Yeah.
they were interested in having an event, but they didn't have anybody that actually wanted to do the work on it. We wanted to do the work on it, but we didn't have some of the resources, so it worked.
And I think it's worked really, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one of the reasons why Charmed has had the longevity that it has is partly because of having that foundational support from Black Rose.
It did help a great deal. Now, of course, the other part of that, the downside, if you will, to having a sponsor, we don't actually make any money. The con does. The con
Yeah.
makes money very well, and it all goes to Black Rose. We don't get to keep any
Hmm.
for a scholarship fund or anything like that. And that's why Charmed was is the one that has not ever had a real scholarship program
Yeah.
because we have no way to finance it.
I
Um,
mean,
so
we
it's a
do
trade-off. It's a trade-off.
we do offer I I think that we do offer opportunities to help people attend the con who are in financial need
We
in
certainly
ways
do.
that get around the need for a scholarship.
Well,
but
particularly, working for it, volunteering.
mm,
We do get a lot of people who get, discounted or free tickets for volunteering and volunteering a lot, and that's great.
yeah.
Um, but if you look around the early WeHo or the early MeWho, they had a volunteer, they had a non-volunteer scholarship type program.
Hmm.
And for a while there, MeWho had it too, because after all, it was also kind of a Mefke co-production.
Well,
Um,
so
Now, of
the
course,
current Chicago Con
yeah,
does allow in their registration model for people to pay more in order to put money towards helping out other people,
yes, they do. I
which is,
regularly do that.
yeah, which is specifically the kind of thing that we cannot do
Right.
at this time because of Black Rose.
It comes with, Black Rose comes with their registration system, which
Mhm.
has a couple of well-known, shall we say, quirks,
Well, yes,
like
but we
the
probably
inability to enter an international address.
yes, we probably shouldn't go into too great a detail on that because then we'll spend the next 35 minutes talking
Sure.
about stuff like that.
Suffice to say that, that while it was nice and is still nice having their sponsorship, there are some downsides that come with it.
Yeah.
And oh well.
Oh
But
well.
I mean, that
Indeed.
got us the ability to get started.
Yeah.
And then we started having the first one, and we had no clue if anybody was going to show up. I mean, sure, we started to get registrations in, and we had uh, I think it was almost 100 people who registered, before the con. But then we had like
Mm-hmm.
another 20 or so that came at the con. Uh, it was a small group, but hey, it was 120 some odd people, which was all you were getting at Nihu because it was all you could
Mm-hmm.
squeeze into their venue at the time.
Yeah. And
Um,
the first WeHo, which I did go to,
mhm.
I think maybe, and this is based completely on me remembering how many people I saw milling around. If they had as many as 50 people, I would be shocked. And it
The first Nihu
grew
was
after
small.
that first year, but that first one was really, really small.
I
And
mean, remember, you probably don't remember the first Nihu.
no, I wasn't around. I want to say by the time I started doing anything or even hearing anything about the community, I think it was Nihu 5. They'd gotten all the way to number 5.
Yeah.
But yeah, and to
Now,
give credit where it's due, without those early cons
mhm.
sort of setting the tone and foundationally making a community. Maybe we wouldn't
Yes,
be here right now,
probably
but
not. And
we
I
are
mean,
here.
and we did learn things from those other cons, even the ones that were not always the greatest.
Yeah.
But it was from Nihu in calling itself an unconference, but not actually being an unconference, that got our original people, which was CU Foil and Turnabout, were absolutely determined that we were going to have an actual unconference.
Hmm.
So we set aside Sunday morning with no scheduled programming for unconference. That has been since day one.
And it's very, very popular.
Yes. And it has had always been their baby up until a couple of years ago when they
Yeah.
retired and I took it over.
I should say allegedly it's very, very popular because in 10 years of going to cons, I've managed to get up on a Sunday morning exactly one time to go and do an unconference thing, and that's on
Yeah.
me. Other people
Yeah.
should definitely do it. But anyway, the hotel.
I get up for
The
it now
the
because I have to.
yes. So the first hotel, and I want to set a scene for
Oh,
people
yes.
because I hadn't
Picture,
gone
if
to
you
too
will.
many, yeah, really. I hadn't gone to too many cons at that point, and I was rooming with two other people, and I was going to be the person who got there first. So I was in charge of paying, right? I
Okay.
am historically a poor person. I am far less poor now than I was then. At that point, I was a quite poor person. And so I knew ahead of time exactly how much money the hotel was going to cost, and I was prepared for that. I also didn't have a lot of experience with going to hotels and doing travel of that nature. And I'm a little bit anxious about stuff like that. So I had done all my due diligence and even like called the hotel ahead of time to find out about the hotel shuttle and everything. And they told me, "Oh, you don't have to schedule anything when you arrive. Just call us. We'll send the shuttle right over," which I now know in retrospect is not normal. And at the time, I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. Like, I get to the airport, I call, they're like, oh yeah, it'll be there in 5 minutes. I'm standing there. There's some other guy who's been waiting for, for his his fancier hotel shuttle. He's been standing there for like 25 minutes. And like, I don't know when it's gonna come. And I'm like, huh, wow, my hotel is so great because I just called them and the guy shows up and I'm the only person he's picking up and he tells me about local restaurants and how great the hotel is and we get there and I walk in and I go to pay and they tell me a total and it is not the total that I am prepared to pay.
Yes.
And I
Probably a higher
say
total.
it was and I say nope, that has to be the total I'm prepared to pay because otherwise you're not getting paid. Any other hotel in the world would have been like, cool, you don't get a room then. And this hotel went, okay. And then instead of like running my card the way that you would anticipate them, they had to call on the phone to run my card.
Oh God.
And I went, well, that's strange, but everything is working out. And I go up to the room, and the room is, honest to God, I swear, like 35 degrees. The air conditioning is blowing in this room. And I'm like, well, that's weird because it's January, but sure. And I turn the air conditioning off and I turn the heat on. And I go to I came and I helped stuff envelopes
Mm-hmm.
with the concom because
Because
back
it
in
was
those
warm down
days
there.
there were still envelopes with programs and things in them.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until the next morning when people started saying there was no hot water and when people
Yes.
started pointing out that every room was like 30 degrees, that we all kind of started going, huh, this is weird. And
Gee,
then
could
went
this
down
hotel
for the
possibly
free
be a peak of?
breakfast. Mm. Yeah,
Hmm.
the free breakfast was moldy fruit and flats of stale muffins from Costco.
Yeah.
And here's I want to because obviously I work for the con now. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
part of it. Obviously this experience did not turn me off from attending Charmed. So I want to impress upon everyone
Somehow.
that Charmed is great. It was a great experience even in that hotel, but that hotel it turns correct me if I'm wrong, somebody had bought the hotel
Mm-hmm.
and not told us. So it wasn't going to be a Ramada anymore. They'd
Yes.
had an issue, if I understand this correctly, they'd had an issue before Christmas with a leaky pipe or a broken pipe or something, and then they hadn't turned the heat down, so they had leaky pipe plus mildew. So by the time we got there, they had all of the air conditioning and fans running everywhere in the hopes that they could dry the hotel out.
Yes. Remember the halls with the little portable fans in them?
Yes.
Yep.
And everywhere freezing, everywhere in that hotel freezing. Two
Yeah. Well, it didn't
elevators.
help that it was a colder than usual January also.
Was it?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Of
But I
course
mean,
it was.
our people managed to have fun. Um, one of the big stories that came out of that Charmed was, of course, the famous DJ and sleeping girl in the elevator scene.
Um, I want to be clear here. There were three of us in that elevator.
Yes, there were.
Thank you
I'm
very
sorry.
much.
I'm
It's
sorry.
okay. I didn't contribute very much. There were two elevators in that hotel,
Hmm.
one of which made a noise like if you combined a car crash with like whale song. So like
Yes,
a weird animalistic but mechanical groaning every time the elevator moved.
I'm convinced there was something alive at the bottom of the shaft.
Yeah. Or slowly becoming less alive every time but anyway, yes, there was a scene in the elevator which in those days you could get away with doing because
Yes.
something else that we didn't pick up on at the time that perhaps we should have is that there wasn't anybody else in the hotel other
Very
than
few.
us,
Yeah,
and
there
we
were
did
very
not
few.
plan that. That
No.
was not, oh, we're going to take over this hotel. That was people just weren't in the
No. And I
hotel,
mean,
which
we
is not a
didn't
good
take
sign.
over the hotel in the sense of selling every room, but we sure as hell were a good 90 to 95% of the people
Hmm.
there.
Yeah. Like there was very little chance that anyone was going to get on to that elevator
Yep.
that wasn't somebody from the con.
Yes.
And to be fair, because it is a hot story, okay?
Yes.
It
It
is
is
a hot
very hot.
story. DJ and I did a thing in the elevator with Sleeping Girl. And in this day and age, because our consent culture and etiquette has evolved since
Yes.
2016, we would not do that, right? Because you don't
No.
know who's going to get on the elevator. Even if it's someone else from the convention, you're setting up a situation where they're potentially walking into a hypnosis scene that they haven't
Yes.
consented to be a part of. So yeah, we did it in 2016. Don't do
Well, I
it
mean, there was a
in
lot of stuff that was done
2025.
in 2016 that we wouldn't do now. Um,
Yeah.
orgies, for instance.
Ugh. To be fair, the orgy was like 2017.
The,
We
the, the,
haven't
the big
gotten
one
to
that everybody
the
remembers was 2017.
yeah.
Yes.
We
Uh,
we haven't actually gotten to the hotel yet where we had enough private space to accommodate that. We're gonna have to put an adult rating on this. Anyway, we were gonna have to put an adult rating on this anyway. But so yeah,
oh, because I
very,
said orgy. I'm
very
sorry.
it's all right. We were gonna have to anyway because we're talking about a hypnosis convention. Um, so kind of crummy hotel, larger than expected turnout, even though smaller than today.
Yes.
But as we were looking at the schedule, preparing for this conversation, one of the things that struck me that I had forgotten about is the sheer lack of people presenting. By which I mean there was a full schedule,
Very
but
few. Well, yeah, but it was a full schedule because we had like, Leah Lord teaching 6 classes, and I taught like 8 classes, and DJ Pinchin taught like eight or 9 classes, and
well,
you know,
there's some exaggeration happening there with some of those people. You have always overachieved when it comes to number of classes taught.
no, back then
Um,
I did, yeah.
yes, yes.
Now,
Um,
actually, it charmed one because I was helping to run it.
yeah.
So if there was something missing, I felt like, well, okay, nobody else is doing that. I guess I better do it.
Mhm. So it's really fun because right now of course, we just closed the submission period for class proposals, regular class proposals for 2025. So it's fun to compare and contrast the numbers of classes and presenters from that first schedule with the 4 times as many presenters and classes that have to be narrowed down
Yes, we did
to a
have that
schedule.
first couple of years of having to narrow things down. Um, we had the opposite problem. Who can we go to give us another class?
Hmm.
But in that first year, we actually had a fair number of classes. And yes, it was the same presenters, and some of those presenters are no longer with us in the community,
Hmm.
various reasons. But I mean, all the classic topics were there. We
Yeah.
had a very large emphasis on new people. So we had
Hmm.
extra type 101 level classes in there. And I mean, Ten Fan was there with Daja, and a lot of the usual people had actually started back there.
Hmm.
We wanted to do that actual honest to God unconference.
Yeah.
Um, Turnabout and CU Foil made that happen. Um, we wanted to do evening events. So again, it was a question of, well, who wants to do them? What do you want to do? I don't even remember what we had for evening events.
I
Once you
don't
with the
remember.
program, I can remember. Let's see.
Honestly, I remember at that convention there were several like room parties
Yeah,
that
actually,
happened.
yeah, there wasn't actually much in the way of organized evening events.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
again, if I'm recalling the layout of the space correctly, I know one evening, as has always been since the beginning, one evening was devoted to vending. And I think that's what I'm recalling is that the actual space for doing evening events was not available in the way that has been at subsequent
that's
con.
right. That's right. We wanted to do more events, but we really didn't have
Yeah.
space for them. And vending was basically the evening event on Saturday night.
Hmm.
Yes, our two vendors.
Well, now, so two outside vendors,
Two
right?
outside
But
vendors.
I
We
know,
we
so
had
that was the year that the
Dragon,
Hypnotic Game.
we had Leolore, we had
Hmm.
Knightley and Company, we had the Little Kink Boutique, Pure Romance, and Flogger Knows Best.
Yes. I know if Flogger Knows Best is if they also had, I'm not good on names of things. If they had more things that you could whip people with other than hitting people with floggers, I know there was somebody there that they were like doing whip crack noises
Mm,
through the night, but I
I
don't
think
know.
that might have been him because that was
Yeah,
Scott, and he was the only one that had impact toys that year.
which, sorry, I had a little moment there. I it's funny, right? Because I think you started out with, let me rephrase. When the convention was still based in Baltimore, I think
Yes.
it was slightly more accessible to outside vending than it has been in Annapolis. So I know that between 2016 and 2019, you saw a lot of growth in outside vendors coming in, and hopefully we'll eventually get that back. But yeah, because I remember eventually there were several people who had different types of impact toys.
Hmm.
But yeah. But anyway.
Yeah, but but yeah.
So, of the classes on that schedule, you taught a bunch of them. I know I'm on there once back in the days where I didn't really teach a class. All of my classes in the beginning were, let's have a roundtable where we talk about writing smut or something. I didn't
Yes.
really get into sort of actual hypnosis in my classes at the hypnosis convention for a couple more years, I think. But
Where are you in here?
creator roundtable, I think, is what it is.
Creators Roundtable and telling your story. Blogs, scene
Mhm.
logs, the power of processing.
Yeah, yeah. The first one, creators roundtable, that would be my title, and I think the second one, Ten Fan turned in
Uh,
and has
okay.
the slightly more complicated title. But yeah, there are a lot of people who don't teach anymore on that schedule, and the people who do teach are names that I'm not counting myself in this at all, and I won't let you count myself in this. But they're names of people who've been around for a long time and who have a lot of name recognition, right? Like you, like Leolore, like DJ Pinchin,
I mean,
like
there. but we're teaching less. And we are
Hmm.
actually getting a lot of newer presenters coming in.
Which is fantastic, which
Yes,
is like the dream, right?
yes, that's always been the dream. None of us, I don't, well, I'm speaking for everybody and I shouldn't be, I guess, but I'm pretty sure that none of us really wanted to keep being, one of the five presenters for, ongoing ever time because
Hmm.
get tired.
Oh yeah. And it's draining. And I don't think people realize that even if you're doing a class that doesn't have a lot of physical exertion,
Mhm.
mentally you're really using up a lot of energy, even if you're just leading a round table for 45 minutes. And then when you multiply that by 7 or 8 classes.
7 or 8 or 10 or 12. Yeah.
Yeah. Never again.
Never,
Never again.
never again. Um,
So,
let DJ do it either.
no, DJ won't do it either.
Yeah.
He learned. He learned.
Yeah, he and I used to be
Um,
two almost pretty much every play time out.
mhm.
Hell, there
There
was
was
one Mihu where I was standing in for somebody at a round table, and it was my 13th presentation on a Sunday after, and I was talking like this because I really didn't have any voice left unless I went to the low registers.
so you dropped half the room.
And Daja is sitting there in the audience. She's like, "Will you stop that, please?" I had to say, "Look, I'm sorry. This is the only voice I have left."
And you know what? Sunday afternoon, all it takes is a funny look or an ill-advised hand gesture, and people are fractionated enough that, yeah,
Yeah.
what can you really do? Um, there was something else that I was going to say, and it
You
has just
mentioned
gone
when we were
poof right
talking
out of
about
my
this,
head.
you want to talk about some things we were doing differently, uh, structure, leadership structure, and things like that. So we can go there if you like.
That's true. You mentioned Joe, the volunteer coordinator.
Uh-huh.
I know we must have had door dragons,
We did.
but I don't remember. Like this is the problem with thinking about things that happened in 2016. I don't remember there being a huge volunteer presence.
Joe is very quiet about that. And I mean, we didn't use as many volunteers then as we do now
Hmm.
because we were a much smaller
Yeah.
lot. There was, and in fact, in that first hotel, there was only one point where we needed to put Door Dragon.
Hmm. Oh
And
yeah,
past that,
true.
we were all in con space, so we didn't, you didn't have Door Dragons in various places like you do now.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, especially at first, a lot of the work was done by the concom, and we were getting tired after a while. But we
I
did
remembered what I was gonna say. Finish that thought, and then I remembered what I was gonna say.
okay. Another thing we did, which was unusual, unique, and in fact is still unique among concoms, maybe. Um, we made a deliberate decision in year one not to have a chair.
Hmm.
Uh, there is no one person who has the final say on anything in our concom. Um, we're all equals, and there's one person who's kind of tasked with keeping everybody on track.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like the power of the nag rather than the power of you must know. And as a result, nobody gets to override everybody.
Hmm.
It's all got to come down to, and generally speaking, we don't vote. We prefer consensus. If
Hmm.
we get a solution that everybody can support, or at least that, everybody, well, you know what, I don't like it, but okay.
Yeah.
That is a better result than having a a 4-3 vote, and then three people are pissed off.
Mm-hmm.
So we took that model in the first year and we kept it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was difficult. We had one guy who really thought his say should be it, and that should be that. And until we got rid of him, there was a constant fight.
Well, yeah. But let's not go there.
He's fun now, so we don't care.
Yeah. I think one of the major differences that I've noticed between the Charmed Concom, which is the only one I've been on,
Mhm.
and the Concoms of other cons is other cons governing bodies seem to dwindle over time, and Charms expands.
Yes.
I feel like every single year a need has been seen and people have been added. And like right now we have 9 people on our concom,
Yep. Which is
which
time high, and we have 500 attendees, so
yeah,
it's
no,
appropriate.
with 9 people, I feel like we have a really good breakdown of different areas of focus that covers the population we now have. But I also feel like we could all probably use a dedicated assistant. Right now, we sort of have it set up so different Concom members are backing up other Concom members, which is also good and should not stop happening. But
Uh,
I also think
we,
that we're getting to the point where having like just like Katie has Unidragon
mhm.
as the the person on the ground for registration. We all could use a Unidragon.
Yeah.
The thing I was gonna say
Mhm.
that I now remember, we're talking about how at Charmed One there was a large focus on new people and educating people new to hypnosis or new to the hypnosis community. And
Mhm.
I feel like, and this is something I have consistently said every single year since it started, I feel like Charmed is the best con to recommend to people who are new, to people who don't know anything about hypnosis, or to people who have never been part of the event attending hypnosis community. Like all the people who, especially since we had the lockdown years, all the people whose experience with hypnosis is reading MC stories or Omegle or one of the 100 discords that are sort of the wild, wild west as far as
Yeah.
proper, and I am going to say proper, I'm going to make that judgment call, proper etiquette, proper ethics, and how you deal with other people and how you respect their agency as human beings and not just the person you want to hypnotize or whatever. And the
Yes.
schedule has grown every year. More classes have been added every year. And that percentage of classes aimed at new people has risen concordantly. And I'm really happy that that's our brand, right? That
That
makes
has been
me
the
very
brand
happy.
from the beginning. Partly because it was Black Rose's desire, but it was also my desire,
Mhm.
and a couple other people. So we started out that way, and I have always been, and I know I've annoyed you a couple of times with this,
It's
but
all
I've
right.
been the one going, we are an educational conference first, then a party. And I take
That
that very seriously.
I am not actually as annoyed by that as other people have spoken up about because I that's one of my main focuses is that this is our community, learn how to be a part of this community, that aspect of it. I personally have an issue with classes that are all lecture, no demo.
Yeah,
That's my pet peeve,
yeah.
but that's
And mine is death by PowerPoint.
yeah.
And we still have a few people that say, "Hey, I want a projector," and I'm like, "Well, okay, we have a couple projectors."
Well, you know, and one of the things that's happened
That.
as the population of the con has grown and the population of people wanting to present has grown, especially with the submissions this year, there's a larger number of people who, rather than interacting with the con like a fan convention, they're reacting and interacting with it more like it's a technical convention or a clinical convention. They're coming with the background and the expertise in doing that kind of class, the PowerPoint, the lecture, and they so we were having to make space for that in a way that we really didn't before, because
Yeah.
before it was
And it's still
yeah, it was a different
become
background.
it, but you know, I I'm old school, I guess, in that I think if you're going to teach someone hypnosis, you need to show them how it is done, as opposed to
Mm.
talking about it and never actually getting around to showing things. Um, but hey, there's there are that is not an exclusive opinion.
Yeah. Well, and my thing is I have the attention span of a carrot stick,
Hmm.
and even with slides, your slides have to be extraordinarily interesting
And
for my
that
attention to
can tell
stick.
what's on the slides.
Mhm.
Yeah,
But it is what it is.
it is.
And we
Right. We don't just let me pick everything.
the comments on the submissions are great because you really get to see what each individual reviewer's interests are,
Yes.
and
Yeah,
their little
group gets to see those comments.
mhm. I mean, what's the saying? Your kink is not my kink, and that's okay.
Yep.
And that means that there's always going to be classes on the schedule that some people on concom are like, huh, that's that's a
Yes.
weird choice, and other people are going to be super enthusiastic about.
Yeah.
And that's why it works.
But there are things we have always been able to agree on. We do not teach therapy.
Mhm.
And we've all got really, really good senses for when is it getting close to that line.
Mhm.
And I like that because in the early days, it was pretty much just me that had that sense.
I'm laughing at myself because, as we've discussed, I did accidentally have a therapy class once, and I
Yeah.
didn't realize that it was until like 3 years later, and it's never happened again.
Yes.
And yes, and we will not talk about that right now. But
No,
anyway,
yeah.
that's about 45 minutes, which is a pretty good amount of time to be talking about something that happened 10 years ago,
Yes.
9 years ago at this point.
Well,
So, we're
when
taking it on faith that the live stream is actually happening because we are not able to see if there's a chat happening or not. So if you've been putting comments in our live stream chat this whole time, I apologize. We'll figure it out better for next time. And next time, we're gonna continue, because I think I'm funny, counting down to Charm 2025 by counting up, starting at the first charm. So next week, we'll be talking about the second charms, where we
yeah.
move to a much better hotel.
Well,
Better than the first one.
and then the first one,
Better than the first
elevator ghosts.
one. Yeah, but save that for later. Thank
Yes,
you, Wise
we'll
Guy, for
see that.
taking time out of your day.
Hmm?
Thank you for taking time out of your day to do
Thank
this,
you. This has been fun, and
and
let's do this again.
hopefully it will. We should, and hopefully it will be fun next time as well.
Yes.
Oh,
Hey, hello.
and I'm just gonna turn the live stream off now.